Welcome back to this second part of Murder with Friends. Today we're talking about American serial killer Michael Swango. I'm joined by Anna Cron. We're not sure. We're just mispronouncing Anna Cron.
Yeah.
It sounds way more fancy for some reason.
Like I'm a countess or something.
Yeah, like Countess Cron. So where we left off with Michael in part one, we left off that he was out for poisoning but not killing his coworkers in Quincy. Unbeknownst to investigators at this time, he had already committed murders back at OSU and other of his residencies at different hospitals. But he just got off for 2 years of poisoning, and he's feeling bolder than ever and more committed to pursuing whatever his deathly dreams were of working in the medical field. He even sends the Judge Cashman, a Christmas card after he's out, which is so creepy, and it just shows his ego here that he got away with it, and he has no intention of trying to have a better life. In fact, he moves to Sioux Falls in 1992, and he is doing a lot of fraudulent stuff. Like he's engaging in fake identities and falsifying past records because, remember that these hospitals where people had been killed, they weren't able to tie him directly to them, but they were suspicious, and he was able to just make all these fake records and make it seem like he had a sterling reputation because he was a very cunning and manipulative person.
Yeah.
But this starts to catch up to him to Sioux Falls. People find out about his reputation.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about that.
People found out about his reputation and didn't really believe it because they, like you were just saying, very like charming, egotistical, confident guy. It's like that guy would never, what? Come on. So like there's a story where he went to a party and people were just kind of poking fun at him, like, oh, Dr. Death, don't poison me, stuff like that. And he was playing into it and was like, oh, hi, just really just like, he probably loved it.
I also think there's part of him sort of played that well if we're thinking like, okay, I don't want to get caught.
Yeah.
Because if he owns up to like, yeah, okay, I guess I poisoned my coworkers.
Or if he was like, don't say that.
Yeah, yeah, then it would be a little bit more alarming, like, oh, I think there's something more here. But if he's like, oh, you heard that I just poisoned some donuts and was a shitty coworker, like, all right, I'll cop to that, because he knew that he actually had a way more of a body trail that as of now was undiscovered. So if he's like, look, if I'm gonna get caught for poisoning some donuts, that's okay. He even was talked about on the Discovery Channel at a program that they had called the Justice Files or something like that. I've been trying, I wonder if one of you guys can find, I tried to find this programming from 1992 that aired, that sort of blew the lid off of him in Sioux Falls, where people got to know a little bit about his past, although not the total depth of it. I can't find it. Maybe if you can, please let me know. I'd be very interested to watch what that coverage was.
I would too, I haven't seen that.
So he's married at this time, but it's not going well, things with his wife. In fact, his wife leaves him and then shortly after commits suicide, and it's speculative, but there's some sort of tie to poison with this as well?
Yeah, I believe so. I think that they later found that there were trace amounts of certain things in her blood or in some of her organs. Yeah, it's really sad. I don't know if she killed herself because she knew that he had been poisoning her. Like, I don't know what her motive was to kill herself, but
Andrew is saying, thank you, Andrew, that perhaps her mental instability was caused by the slow poisoning over time, which is a little bit outside of what we know of Swango's MO, just a little bit of poison.
Yeah.
And so that the ramifications, the effects of that would just slowly take on. Usually it's been a poison dosage strong enough to either kill someone or to have them have a visceral response to that poison almost immediately.
Yeah.
So you hear about like people drinking a tea or having a soda from him, and then 15 minutes later they're just over a toilet.
Yeah.
So it's especially sinister if it is true that he was little by little poisoning his wife.
Yeah.
We're gonna get into the psychology behind people who poison in part 3, but that was just so unsettling for me. So as he continues to have to forge his way through life, the walls start closing in on him. And like anyone would do, he decided that he would flee to Zimbabwe. I know that sounds crazy, but it's true. It's a crazy true story. And let's go to our video element explaining what happened.
In a desperate attempt to evade United States law enforcement, Swango slithers his way to Zimbabwe in 1994. He had hoped this new country would be too backwards to notice his fatal track record. He would be wrong. True crime writer Joseph Geringer explains, quote, Looking to get out of the country, Swango applied with an agency that serves as a conduit for English-speaking doctors seeking employment in other nations. He submitted a parcel of forged and totally fabricated documentia, the curriculum vitae attesting to his outstanding work across the United States. A cover letter bespoke a desire to practice medicine in a far-off village somewhere, all for the sake of mankind. The Lutheran Mission Hospital at remote Menin received his package and thought that this Dr. Michael Swango would be an excellent catch. American doctors were hard to come by, and here was one almost pleading to be selected, end quote.
This is such a crazy turn in his life. What do you know about his jump to Zimbabwe and his time over there?
I know that he knew people were starting to get onto him in a very serious way, like the American Medical Association,
Andrew.
the AMA. I always forget that. Yeah, the AMA and the FBI had started to build a case against him, and he somehow got word of that. He knew that it was coming down, so I think he was just trying to get out while he could.
And it wasn't, again, as though he was gonna flee the country and make good, and I'll repent privately for my past crimes and I'm gonna start a new life. It was, honestly, it was like, I think I can actually get away with this more.
Yeah.
I think we see his inclination to poison patients.
It's like an addiction almost, like he cannot stop.
I think it was heightened in Zimbabwe because
it's probably easier for him to get away with there.
Yeah, also because people were incredibly trusting of him early on, although what is it called when someone's higher up than you? So it's like subordinates, and then I guess at a managerial level, the people he was working under were growing suspicious. But a lot of the people that he was working under would just, if he said, well, this is what they needed, they'd be like, all right, cool, like, that's it. And he ended up killing about 20 people while he was in Zimbabwe. And I think that a lot of this is estimates, because it's really hard to tell in the medical field if it was a natural occurring cardiac arrest or if this was induced by poison. And a lot of that makes you wonder. And I think that's why he's pinned to 60 murders, but I've heard that the estimates could be upwards of like 100 or something.
Really?
Like that. Yeah.
I thought that 60 was like kind of like the top. It could be 100
Yeah,
potentially.
well, again, to bring up Charles Cullen, another not Dr. Death, he was a nurse of...
I thought you were gonna say nerd doctor.
The glasses, they're not great. Charles Cullen's estimate is like between 27 murders and 400 because he had a similar case of just moving from hospital to hospital, and it's just really impossible to ever understand how many people he killed, because this was the guy, Charles Cullen, was spiking insulin bags. What we can say about Swango is that it's a little bit of a lower estimate because his poison, as far as we could tell, was more directive, where it was like, okay, I'm giving you these donuts, or I'm poisoning you intravenously with this syringe. It wasn't, as far as we know, just spiking a whole bunch of stuff that was going out indiscriminately to different patients at the hospital. But the walls are closing in on Michael Swango, but not really for murder, although people are, again, growing suspicious. They know that this is a bad guy, but what they can tie him to is all the fraud, just all the fraud that he's been committed, so much fraud. And he is locked up for fraud in 1998, and this is while he's trying to get away that he is locked up for this. So talk a little bit about how he was apprehended.
Well, from Zimbabwe, he wanted to go straight to Saudi Arabia.
Because things were bad in Zimbabwe at this time.
They were, like you said, walls closing in. So he wanted to get out of there, was heading to Saudi Arabia, but something with his documents, his papers, they were like, you can't do that. You have to go back to the States first, do this, that, then you can go. So he did it, and they were waiting for him at the Chicago O'Hare Airport, and they got him.
And they got him for fraud. And at this time, the FBI also knew, they were like, the
case was building.
Yeah, the case was building, and they didn't really know exactly how big this was gonna get. But in part 3, we are gonna tell you about how the FBI and science was able to put Michael Swango behind bars forever. Stay with us.